Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. I'm Robbie Rhino, and in today's video we'll be taking a look at the EBR 105, which is the French Tier 10 wheeled light tank. This is the pinnacle of the line, and boy oh boy, it doesn't disappoint. I've been having so much fun with this tank or wheeled vehicle, whatever you want to call it. And yeah, I'll be telling you all about this tank in today's replay. I have 4 gameplays for you to show how this performs, and for me it performs really well if you just use a little bit of game knowledge and map knowledge, and you can really outplay your opponents with your concealment rating and your mobility. So I'll be telling you all of the statistics. I have those 4 gameplays for you, and I'll also show you my equipment and commander setup should you wish to set up your EBR 105 like I have in today's video. So let's get stuck straight into the statistics of the tank then. Well, unfortunately it starts off with bad news. You only have 1300 hit points. This is a running theme with the wheeled light tanks. They have so much less hit points than their competitors tier for tier. However, obviously that's a balancing mechanic to try and offset their fantastic mobility and concealment. So EBR with 1300 hit points is the lowest of all tier 10 light tanks. It also has the lowest view range of all tier 10 light tanks at 360 meters, so you really have to try and push that up in any way you can with your equipment and commander skills. However, it's fantastic news in terms of its concealment. You have a 0.37 steel concealment rating, which is the best out of all tier 10 light tanks, and that includes things like the Manticore and also the T100LT. In terms of the mobility, it's obviously going to be good news, isn't it? It's a wheeled vehicle. It's got the cruise and rapid mode that a few of the tanks have in the line, so that means that you can switch between the two. You can either have better accuracy, better traverse in the cruise mode, or you could have the better mobility or better straight line speed or reverse speed with the rapid mode, but worse traverse and worse accuracy. You have a 720 horsepower engine, and this tank is very light, so you have a fantastic power to weight ratio at 42.35, which is insane. You also go 85 kilometers an hour forwards in the rapid mode and 62 kilometers an hour backwards in rapid mode. So you don't go the same forwards and backwards, but that doesn't seem to hinder it too much because 62 kilometers an hour backwards is still really, really nice. In cruise mode, you still go a whopping 70 kilometers an hour forwards and 50 kilometers an hour backwards, and the traverse on this tank is absolutely phenomenal at 65 degrees a second on the hull and 66 degrees a second on the turret, meaning that you can circle tanks for days, and it's really fun circling everything you meet, and they just whiff their shots past you, auto aiming at you as you're going, 70 kilometers an hour around them, or even 50 kilometers an hour backwards. So what gun does the EBR 105 have then? It's clues in the name basically. It's a 105mm gun that deals 390 alpha damage on its standard APCR and its premium heat rounds, and it deals 500 alpha damage on its HE. The penetration is low at 190 on the standard APCR and only 240 on the heat, so you will struggle penetrating super heavies from the front, but obviously with this mobility and concealment you should be able to get around the size of those super heavies and out traverse them. And the penetration is 75mm on the HE, which can be very useful when you come up against opposition light tanks or lightly armoured tank destroyers or medium tanks. The DPM is quite low at 2125.5, which is a 5.45 rounds a minute with a base reload of 11 seconds. However, you do have fantastic aim time at 1.4 seconds. The accuracy isn't great at 0.38, and I do find that this gun does troll me a little bit, and I do try and make that a little bit better with my commander and equipment setup, as I'll be showing you a little later on. You have 7 degrees of gun depression, which isn't the best, but it's definitely usable, and you can get into some pretty funky locations with the mobility and the concealment of this tank, meaning that it doesn't really hinder you too much In typical sort of French tank fashion, you also have terrible gun elevation at 15 degrees, so be mindful of that. You carry 48 rounds of ammunition, and that's, yeah, more than enough to get you through every single battle that you're going to be in, unless you have some kind of epic game, the best game that's been seen in an EBR 105. In terms of the armour, in sort of wheeled light tank fashion, there isn't much to talk about. The turret is 15mm and 10mm plates, so you're not going to be bouncing anything and you're going to be penetrated by HE. And the hull is only 40mm, whereas the side is 16mm, so if they hit your hull, your turret, you're going to be penetrated by every round that you meet. However, you do absorb quite a few rounds into your wheels. People shoot your, or when you're on the move, shoot your side profile and they shoot low, or their shot dips and it hits your wheels, damages your wheels, but you do absorb the damage, which can be quite funny when a massive caliber round just hits a wheel and does no damage, something like a Jagdpanzer E100 round, and those kind of things do happen. And if you repair your wheel, straight away, then you can get away and, yeah, laugh it off, basically. So what equipment and commander setup do I use? Well, in terms of my equipment, I run advanced optics to help my view range, advanced concealment to push my concealment rating up even further, and a gun stabilizer, and that was the hardest choice I've had to make in regards to my setup. I would use ventilation to push my view range up even more because it is so bad, but I found that the gun was trolling me so much and I wanted to have a little bit better accuracy, so I choose the gun stabilizer, but you could opt for the ventilation instead. So that brings us to the end of the first game there. We have a fantastic game, and that's only a second class, showing how people play this tank very well. We pick up 4 kills, 3.7k direct damage and 4,000 assistance, making a good profit at 149,000 silver. So we're going to hop on now into the second replay. I'll talk you through my commander setup, and then I'll talk you through how I like to play this tank and some tips and tricks on how to play the vehicle. So here we are on Armour in the second replay of the video, and I'll just talk you through my commander setup and how my equipment and commander setup affects my statistics, and then I'll get talking about how I like to play the EBR 105. So in terms of my commander setup then, I have Sixth Sense, Born Leader, Rapid Loading, Situational Awareness, Steady Aim, Snapshot, Run and Gun, Camouflage Expertise and Muffled Shot. So Sixth Sense and Born Leader, standard that I use on pretty much every commander that I have. Rapid Loading to help the DPM out just a little bit. Situational Awareness is a necessity on the EBR 105 and the wheeled vehicles in general. Some gun handling skills in Steady Aim and Snapshot and Run and Gun, so I'm able to be more accurate on the move when I'm circling tanks. And a couple of camouflage skills to help out, boosting the camouflage of this tank with Camouflage Expertise and Muffled Shot. So with that setup, I now have a view range of 461 meters, which I found is just enough at tier 10 for the EBR 105, and you combine that with a 229 meters still concealment, I can outspot pretty much everything, including many other light tanks and stealthy tank destroyers and medium tanks. I now have a DPM of 2,566.2, which isn't the best, but it is usable. You have that mobility and that concealment to get away after you fire your shots, so that doesn't hinder the playstyle too much. I now have a 1.29 second aim time in cruise mode, which is absolutely fantastic. A 0.27 accuracy, which I found is more than enough now, and it doesn't feel as derpy as it did when I was using ventilation instead. And my base reload is 9.12. So let's get talking about how I like to play this tank. Well, using the absolutely fantastic mobility of the EBR 105, I like to get into positions at the start of the game to spot out the enemy vehicle, see where they're going. You get a good overview of where the opponents are going and where your team are going, and you can adjust accordingly. And if you get yourself into a little bit of danger, you can usually get yourself out of it with the mobility and the traverse speed, helping you sort of weave in and out of shells that are coming your way. And I found that that is the best thing to do at the start of the battle. So here on Armour, I've come here to the sort of F4 location, F4, F5, F6 on this little ridge. I'm spotting out tanks that are heading across the north into the town, and also things that are coming this way towards the centre of the map. You'll see me struggling a little bit firing up this tier 8 Rampanzer with that little shovel thing on the front of it here. I think I bounced quite a few shells in this battle, but I still have a good time nonetheless. So when I'm spotted where the enemies are going, I'm able to relocate should I need to. I'm hoping to get some good assistance at the start of the battle, and then it's basically trying to flank the heavily armoured tanks, and I try and focus out the light tanks at the start of the battle if I can, so that I am the sort of king of the battlefield in terms of my view range and my concealment, and that really helps you win the game basically. I found that if I'm able to get good vision out at the start of the battle, I'm able to give my friendly tanks a good idea of where the tanks are going on the battlefield, the enemy tanks, and I'm also able to try and get some of the more dangerous light tanks out of the game at the start. Then I'm having a good win rate in the EBR 105, and here you'll see the fantastic concealment rating of the EBR 105, and I'm just holding my fire on this tortoise, hoping he gets a few shells hit into him until he turns his sight to us, and I was hoping to penetrate that, but with the buffs that the tortoise got to its armour, then I am still unfortunately bouncing because he's at a slight angle. But as you see there, I fired. I'm using the foliage in front of me to fire so that I retain my concealment rating when I fire, so that I actually don't get spotted there, which is absolutely crazy, and I wouldn't really think about going into this position in anything other than an EBR 105 or maybe a T100 LT or something like that. But this is a great location. I can dip down and fire at tanks that are coming up the centre. I can shoot at tanks that are going down the east of the map towards the south and our base, and I'm able to relocate from here as and when. And I just pulled back so I didn't get spotted. The Super Conqueror has gone forward, pushing that medium tank, and now I'm going to go down and help my medium tank out here. And this is what you can do. You can stay hidden and use your sort of predator ambush playstyle to come in and help your friendly tanks and keep them alive, distract the opponents for long enough to take them out, and we helped our T-34-2 there take out that Super Conqueror, and that's a very dangerous British tier 10 heavy tank out of the battle. And I'm just floating around here trying to get as much vision as possible for my team and get as many shots in as I can. And I found that even though the DPM is poor, like I said, because you have that mobility and that concealment, you were able to wait in positions to get good shots off, and you're able to flank them and get shots into enemies that you otherwise couldn't penetrate from the front. And shooting at this kind of range, pretty much you're just invincible because nothing's going to spot you. The only way that you're going to be shot at is if artillery or the enemy tanks are looking for your shell tracers. So I'm just going to continue to fire, and when I fired I move maybe a couple meters in front or to the side, just try and keep relocating so that I'm not able to get blind fired. As you can see, I think there was a shot coming at my friendly tank there that was being blind fired from that sniping location right in the north. In a few of these replays you'll see a little bit of an issue with the view range. I push forward and I'm trying to spot out the opponents, but because that view range isn't great, some of the more stealthy tanks you do have to get to a kind of riskier position to actually spot. And we get a lovely shell there into that T-34 Mod 1, and that alpha damage of 390 on a tier 10 tank isn't unusual, but it feels really nice on a wheeled vehicle because you haven't had a high alpha damage so far on any of this line. It just feels so much more capable, and it's a hell of a lot of fun, and I feel that this is so influential in a battle. It's very much similar to a T100 LT, but in wheeled vehicle form. You have that concealment rating, you have that mobility, and yeah, you also have a pretty good firepower. The T100 LT has a better sort of on-the-move accuracy, a better DPM, and the only difference is this is wheeled, and that one, the T100 LT, has got tracks, but the wheels can be a blessing and a curse. They can get you into trouble with their handling. This one does have a tendency, and by this one I mean the EBR 105, to sort of skid around a little bit, so you do have to be careful about just how much you move the joystick. It's a lot easier to traverse in rapid mode in the EBR 105 than all of the other wheeled vehicles. So if you're going at full pelt with the EBR 105, I found that you can actually traverse quite well, but you can overturn in cruise mode quite easily, and when you skid and grind to a halt, you are a sitting duck for the enemies. But like I said at the start of the video, you can also absorb shells into your wheels, which can be hilarious when something is firing at you like a Jagdpanzer E100, and all they do is just do wheel damage, and you repair it and you zoom off laughing into the sunset. So it's coming towards the end of the game. Now we are a tank down. It's for against 5, and you saw just that I managed to fire on the move pretty well with this tank, and that wouldn't happen if I wasn't using a gun stabilizer, in my opinion, because of the sort of derpiness nature, or the derpy nature of this gun. I found that my setup works really well for me, but you might want to improve your view range even more and be slightly more passive, because even though this is intended to be an active scout, because of the poor view range, you can play a relatively sort of medium passive game if you boost your view range to the best it can be, and you'll be able to spot out a lot of other tanks, or pretty much every tank that you meet, if you use the bush mechanics correctly. And just to go over the bush mechanics once again, you'll see me doing it here. You sort of poke through the bush so that it's transparent, so that you're able to spot opponents, and when you want to fight, if you want to remain or keep all of your concealment factor, you pull back behind the bush until the bush is opaque, meaning that you sort of it's not as transparent as before. You fire through it and you'll retain your concealment rating. And the fantastic thing about light tanks and wheeler tanks is that you don't lose concealment rating when you're on the move, so this thing can get across the battlefield very quickly, very sneakily. You flank your opponents, and in these end game scenarios, the EBR 105 is so fantastic and so powerful, and I've had so many games where I've come back from a deficit to come back and win just by using my mobility and my concealment rating. When you come up against tanks like we are now against this, it says T110E4, but it's actually a WZ113 GFT that haven't got a turret. You were able to out-traverse them so easily, even in your cruise mode, and yeah, it's ripped for them. So now I'm just trying to spot for my tank destroyer and heavy tank that are sitting near our base. There's 2 tank destroyers left on the enemy team, and an SPG and artillery piece. So I'm just going to be using my combat rations, which I use on this tank, to boost my view range passively, and now I'm boosting it actively just for that little bit more of a boost. So I'm hoping to spot any tanks that are coming along out of the town, and I'm just going to carry on going around trying to spot tanks. So I've spotted this artillery piece. I'm going to try and get some foliage in place, but back up a little bit so I don't get spotted. And unfortunately we only do track damage to that batch at 155.58, but we know where that artillery piece is now. We should be able to come from behind him, and we should be able to outspot that batch at no problem. Unfortunately, as we move across this open field here, we come in front of this T110E4. We take a massive shot into the side. The hit points don't go very far, but I believe we also took a shell from the grill, or one of our teammates shot us anyway there. So we're going to use our mobility to get out of a dodge, relocate, respot these tanks up, and try and shoot them when we are able to stay hidden. So we're using these ridge lines just to peek over, get a shot, re-stealth, and then we're going to try and rinse and repeat and whittle these tanks down so that we are able to help our team take this one down. I'm just trying to move out as much as possible, try not to get hit by artillery, because even though you have that fantastic mobility, artillery has this funny knack of completely missing you but killing you because of that stupid splash damage that artillery has. But that's a discussion for another video, isn't it? So now I'm relocating just in case they think I'm coming from the same ridge line. I'm going to use all of this foliage in front of me to retain my concealment factor. I've boosted my combat rations once again, trying to get as much view range out as possible. I'm trying to urge my tanks, or my friendly tanks, to maybe push forward ever so slightly, to use their hit points and their view range to maybe spot up the enemy tanks that I'm able to get side shots in. But now I'm going to come over and help out this super heavy tank in my base. We spot out that T110E4, and I'm hoping that one of our tanks gets a shot into that T110E4, and it's at this moment I was hoping that we actually had an artillery left on our team, because this would be a perfect moment for an artillery to splash the enemies to a point where I can go in and take a chunk of their health off or finish them off. So I'm just continually relocating, coming up from different locations, trying not to make it obvious where I'm coming from, and I'm just trying to find clean shots and shots where I'm able to penetrate. That T-124 is going to be as tough for me to penetrate from the front, so I'm going to have to try and get to these sides and the rear. And that grill hasn't got good camera rating, but it's got a pretty accurate gun, so if I get spotted I definitely don't want to hang around too long. But I found a position here with lots of foliage in front of me that's keeping me concealed, and I'm getting shots into that T-124. I get one in, and unfortunately he gets re-stealth, but we spot him again as he goes over, and now he's going in on our heavy tank. Unfortunately our Jagdpanzer E100 puts a massive show into that T-124, finishing him off, and now I've spotted this artillery piece. He just goes forward in time, so I'm not able to get a shot into him. I'm just hoping he's going to back up, so I'm just hanging around here for the moment. Our heavy tank's lost a little bit of health, so I'm going to come over now, try and respot this Batchat 15558 off, and once he has been taken out of the game, I'm able to advance undetected and spot this griller up, and the grill doesn't have a fully rotating turret, so I should be able to outreverse that grill 15 no problem. That Batchat goes forward, trying to attack our heavy tank. In my opinion, the heavy tank probably should have just gone forward and put a shot in, but he allowed the Batchat 15558, that auto-loading tier 10 French artillery tank, to actually reload, and now it's just me and the Jagdpanzer E100 against this grill 15 and the artillery. So I'm going to try and just poke around this corner. I'm being quite careful not to overextend and get into a position where I'm going to get spotted easily, but I do notice that it's coming towards the end of the game, so I did panic ever so slightly there, fire off a shell, get spotted, and now I'm just going to stay behind this rock so I can't get splashed. I'm trying to encourage the Jagdpanzer E100 to go forward as quickly as possible, because with me and him hitting that grill 15 at once, we'll be able to take that grill 15 out, and even if we can't take the Batchat artillery out, we'll be able to finish the game off. But I'm just going to go in now. I don't want to lose this game, so I'm just going to go in, use my mobility to try and avoid this Batchat 15558. We take out that Batchat 15558, and I'm going to get re-stealthed, try and spot this griller up and go in for a last minute kill, trying to win the game the old fashioned way by taking all of the enemy tanks out. We get a nice shell in, we've distracted that grill 15 out, and I'm just hoping this Jagdpanzer E100 can go forward. I go forward, just trying to bring that grill 15 over the ridge just a little bit. He gets shut down by the grill 15, and it was just me versus that grill 15 left, meaning that it's actually a close defeat. I could have been more decisive, go through the town at the end of the game there, but we still have a good game nonetheless, finishing with 6.2k direct damage, 2.4k assistance, 3 kills, and over 100,000 silver profit again. So we're going to hop on now into the third replay, and I'll show you how good the spotting performance of this tank can be. Righty ho then, we're now on to Malinovka, which is the third replay of the video, and this is a really quick win just to spoil it for you, but I want to show you the spotting power of the EBR 105 and the concealment rating that holds up really well, and how you can influence a battle right from the get-go, like I was talking about in the last replay. So I'm going to shoot off into a fantastic spotting location. It's a very aggressive location, but just here I'm able to come up here, spot light tanks that are coming up, and all of the tanks that are coming up to the encounter circle on top of the hill. And my plan was to get the light tanks out of the way at the start of the battle. I'm carrying on wiggling so I don't get hit by any tanks that are trying to snipe me or the artillery. I've managed to spot up quite a few tanks at the start of this battle, and I'm hoping to push over to where that Object 268 version 5 is coming over that second ridge in front of me, or where that 268 is there. I'm hoping to get into one of those locations a little bit later on in the battle to help push my view range out, but right now I'm just going to sit in the open because I feel confident in my concealment rating, and I can easily just drop back down should I need to. I'm trying to hold my fire as much as possible, but I felt like no one else was going to shoot that T95E6, so I'm going to do it for myself. But this replay is going to be a demonstration of how influential early vision can be, and how you can actually stop your opponents from getting to the locations where they need to be. Our team has managed to push up to the hill already, whereas their team has probably been spotted and just fallen back ever so slightly, and it just means that we have taken the hill, which is one of the most, if not the most important part of this map. And I'm just going to be pushing my view range out now, getting shots in where I can. and just stopping them getting to the hill, and we have the high ground. We're able to get shots in on them, and I actually have a team that are firing at what I'm spotting, and as you can see, I'm actually spotting that 277 from a fair odd distance, so you can push the view range up to a decent amount in the EBR 105. And my concealment, I'm in the open, I'm 260 meters away from that T95E6. You can't spot me, but I'm getting an absolute ton of assistance. It's 5.8k assistance already and 796 direct damage, and I'm spotting tanks that are just over this ridgeline here, and they just cannot see me. This M103, I really want to fire here, but he is getting shot up by all of the friendly tanks behind me, so there's no need for me to fire and get spotted, but we do get spotted there, so we're just going to back up, and yeah, we're just going to carry on moving, get re-stealthed, and sort of rinse and repeat. And yeah, if they remembered where I was, they could blind fire, but I'm coming up to an ever slightly different location on the ridgeline, like I mentioned in the last replay, just to make sure that I'm not getting blind fired. And I'm taking shots at the light tanks when I see them, because I know that they're my direct competitors for view range. And if I can get them out, then there's no way that the enemies are going to be doing anything else in this battle, because I'm just going to be stopping them from getting to the hill, and we're capping, putting the pressure on them. This EBR 105 has unfortunately gone into that rock there. That happens with the physics, but we're going to take advantage of that and get a shell into him. And we're already up to nearly 10k assistance damage, and the game isn't even 4 minutes old yet. Now that I notice there's only 20 seconds left on the cap, I have a feeling that our team are going to cap this one out, which is the right move for the win, but I actually wanted someone to reset just so I could just push my view range out even more and get even more assistance, because this could have been some kind of insane game, and it's already a pretty damn good game, but this could have been something magical if we didn't cap this one out. But as we cap that one out, we do go over the 10k assistance mark, and that just shows you how influential the spotting early on can be. So we get 10.3k assistance damage, 2.3k direct damage, we finish MVP. That game didn't last long at all, 3 minutes 57, and we won that game with an 87,000 profit, and that's fantastic for your marks of excellence. So now we're going to head on into the final replay of the video, and then I'll tell you whether I think it's worth the grind. So we're now into the final replay of the video, and we're here on El Haloof in the EBR 105, and on this map with an extremely mobile tank, I want to get forward as quickly as possible below the ridgeline in front of me, so that I'm able to peek up, spot the enemies that are hiding all at the back near their cap, and the tanks that are going to be sniping, and try and get some assistance. We come up against this T100 LT, which is going to be a very hard tank to take out for this tank. That tank can fire a lot better on the move than I can, but we get a shot into the T100 LT there, free aim it, we track him in place, he gets retracked, and that's going to be it for this T100 LT as we put a finishing shout into him. And that is a massive win at the start of the battle, taking out a T100 LT, which is arguably better than the EBR 105 for most players, but it's just as powerful as the EBR 105 in my opinion, or maybe even the EBR 105 is ever so slightly more powerful because of the sort of funky things you can do with the mobility and the positions that you get yourself into with the concealment. So I'm knocking over some buildings here, and it's not actually by accident. I'm trying to knock over as many buildings as possible so that if I do get spotted and I want to retreat quickly, I can go through that area there and actually not hit a building, get slowed down, because this is actually a very light tank, so any kind of tree or obstacle is going to slow you down. And I've been mid-air, hit a tree, fallen over, and actually yeah, landed on my side and self-destroyed or self-destructed so many times in the EBR 105 already, and it's kind of annoying. And you're seeing here that I'm trying to kind of do figure of eights here just to spot up that barrage and anything that might be hiding at the top here, but whenever I overturn, it skids out and you do slow down dramatically, and if anything was looking at me there, I could have been a goner, so you've got to be very, very careful of that. But we're out spotting this Barras, which is an extremely stealthy tier 8 French medium tank, and that just shows you the power of the concealment and the the adequate view range you can have if you choose to set up the EBR 105 like I have done in this video. So this replay is actually a bit of a heart stopper at the end. It's an epic game at the end, and you'll see why. And it's one that have my hands shaking, and I don't have too many battles like that anymore. But it's one of those that it's down to the wire, and it's a really exciting finish. So I highly recommend that you watch it through to the end. And I miss out. Spoiler alert on a collar ban offs by one tank, so yeah, it's definitely worth sticking around for to watch how the EBR 105 performs end game and how influential you can be, yeah, both at the start and at the end of the game. So we outspot that Barask, we get a couple shots into him, and our T-22 medium tank finishes him off. We actually outspotted a Strixbahn 1030 a minute ago, I believe, and yeah, that's a hard tank to outspot. That's an extremely stealthy tank destroyer, so as soon as he fired, we outspotted him, and you'll just see me outspotting tanks, using my mobility to avoid shells and taking fire. And yeah, you find that even though 1300 hit points doesn't go very far if you're getting hit, the trick is not to get hit, isn't it? And it's a lot easier in something like an EBR 105 that is able to out-maneuver most other tanks. In terms of all the other tier 10 light tanks then, I think, yeah, like I've said in the whole of this video, the T100LT is probably the only thing that comes close in terms of the concealment. It's got better view range, and it does have treks which can be more useful in a lot of situations. You don't skid out as much, and it's a lot more accurate on the move. But for me, I prefer the EBR 105. I think it's slightly more powerful because it has a slightly better concealment rating, and the mobility means you can get to some really cool locations, flank enemies from positions they wouldn't even suspect. And I'm just going balls deep now, going into the enemy base. I know I've got a little bit of support. A tank, it looks like, just hit my wheels and actually didn't do any wheel damage there, that Type 50, Type 59-2, and we're just going to help our friendly medium tank take out this Type 59-2 before moving on and trying to get some more damage and some more assistance. We're already up to 3.1k direct and 1800 assistance. I noticed that all of the tanks, or the enemy tanks that are lit up on the minimap, are heading towards my base, and I have more than enough mobility to get there just in time to be able to spot out and help them, help my teammates resist their push and to stop them from capping us out. We are capping ourselves, and it looks like there's a medium tank heading towards my two friendly medium tanks in their base, and I'm putting my faith in our friendlies that they're able to hold them off and maybe cap this one out for me. But I'm going to head back to our base just to try and distract them and stop them from capping out as quickly as I can. Here you're seeing I'm able to spot the tanks that are heading through the centre of the map, going towards their base. They're trying to go back and reset, and I'm able to spot these heavy tanks, and I'm just distracting them, slowing them down. I'm trying to get them to turn for my friendlies, and also if they don't, then I'm going to have shots into them. You'll see here the terrible gun elevation is causing me some issues getting shots in. I'm either having to go really high or drop right back down. We did get one into the T110E5, and it looks like he's going to be taken out. I know there was another heavy, so I'm just trying to push forward a bit here through the centre, trying to spot anything else that's coming through the centre, and hopefully my medium tank down there should be able to give me some backup fire. I noticed that Type 4 Heavy has just finished off our WZ-111 1GFT. I was going to go and circle that Type 5 Heavy because he wouldn't have been able to get a shot into me. Unfortunately, we come across this T-34 Black. We did overturn there, we skidded out, and unfortunately for him, he took too long trying to get a shell into me, and I was able to use my mobility to get out of dodge and re-stealth. We get a nice shot there on the move where running gun comes in handy, and I'm just trying to back up my medium tank. Unfortunately, I'm too late. I'm trying to do a little bit of everything. I didn't have enough time to help out everyone, and now it's a 1 versus 4, so I've got to try and play this one carefully. I've got to use my mobility to flank these opponents and use my concealment to outspot them and pick them off one by one, and I don't want to have them all converge on me. I'm going to keep moving, keep relocating, keep them guessing so that they don't all group up, and the best thing they could all do is just sit in the cap and make me come to them. But one of them splits up, and there are 2 in the cap, and there's 30 seconds left, and for most tanks that would be sort of almost game over now on El Haloof. There's a big steep incline here, but with the mobility and the power to weight ratio of the EBR 105, I can get back no problem. I'm loading the heat rounds to have that extra penetration. It's not fantastic penetration, but it's the best I can do for the moment, and I'm using the hard cover here to sneak up behind these tanks and take them out. And I'm just gonna go in here and try and use my maneuverability to weave in and out of the tanks and the buildings and get as many resets off as possible. And I wasn't expecting to have a fantastic result here, but you're able to turn on a dime. The traverse speeds are absolutely fantastic. You know, at over 65 degrees a second means that you can out traverse, especially heavy tanks like I'm coming up against now. And now I'm going to go for the T-34 Black because he's a one-shot and get him out of the way. Unfortunately, we do bounce. There's only 4 seconds left on the cap, and it's going to be a very close call. So I ram into the T-34 Black to reset, managing to take off the capture points because I didn't have to shoot him. All I had to do was damage a module and do some module damage to reset the capture circle. And now it's just a case of circling this Type 4 heavy, and I'm going to have no problem circling this Type 4 heavy. I'm loading the heat because through the sides the APCR is going to struggle to go through it. I've got to be careful not to get my heat absorbed, but I'm just going to be in cruise mode now, circling, and this is the kind of thing that you can do. And you want to keep some momentum up when you're circling like this. If you stop, you can't turn as well, so I'm going to go forwards, backwards, use my traverse speed, and I nearly muck it up here. Fortunately enough, we're lower profile, and the Type 4 heavy whiffs a shot over us. And I know now I've got the reload on this Type 4, and I'm going to put a shell right into the rear of this Type 4, and it's just one heavy tank left, and the enemy heavy tank obviously knows where I am. So I'm going to come up here to this location, but I'm going to try and sort of double back on myself in a minute, and try and distract or juke the enemy heavy tank. Unfortunately for me, we drive right in front of that MIL2. He whiffs a shell because that thing doesn't have fantastic gun handling, and now we're just going to have to try and re-stealth. I'm coming from a different angle. I fake like I'm going out towards where the rear of where I'm going now, or back towards the sort of one line. Unfortunately, he does catch us as we are coming up over here down these ridgelines, and now I'm just going to have to re-stealth, poke over, and try and get one more shell in before he reaches me, because that thing's got I think it's 12 degrees of gun depression, so he'll be able to use this position no problem, come over and get a shell into me, and if he gets 1 or 2 into me, I think I'm a 2-shot now, so 2 shots into me and I'll be dead. So I'm just going to be poking forward, trying to get the most out of my 7 degrees of gun depression. This is where having wheels can be awkward, because you can't just turn stationary like you can in a track. You actually have to have momentum to turn. We spot this EMIL-2 on that ridge line. We're trying to shoot on the move, but our penetration isn't going to do fantastic. He tries to get 1 shell into us, and it's an autoloader, so if I can get him to miss as many shells as possible, then it's going to work for me. We actually get 1 shell into him there, and now it's just a case of waiting for him to come over the ridge line and come after me. It's a very close call. He gets 1 into me. I miss him because I'm panicking slightly. I'm not going to lie, my hands were shaking, and it hasn't been a situation like this for a while. I could have played this a lot better, but fortunately for me, it worked out well. We managed to avoid his ram with our good mobility, and we take down that 1 versus 4 at the end there, showing you, even if you panic like I did, like a little schoolboy, you still manage to have a great influence at the end of the battle. And that's a high caliber Top Gun mastery badge, and we get a defender medal there for resetting the base. We finish with 1946 base experience points, 7 kills, 7.7k direct damage, and 1800 assistance. And I hope that I have shown to you how influential you can be at the start of the battle, and how influential you can be at the end of the battle, and this is a fantastic tank, and I highly recommend the grind. It's definitely worth it, and there are some good tanks along the way. So that's it for today's Ready Play and today's video. I hope you all enjoyed. Thank you all so much for supporting my content, and until next time, I'll see you on the battlefield, and bye for now.